It's time for the whole 9 yards. Hello, everyone. I'm Ralph Ventre, ready to bring you the whole 9 yards on Week 12 of Northeast Conference football. The next to last edition of the regular season, folks. Yes, we're almost home. And at this point, we have a 3-horse race for the Northeast Conference crown. Bryant, Sacred Heart, Wagner are all alive, and they all have their sights set on capturing the NEC's automatic bid to the FCS playoffs. We'll quickly break down the race before we dive into the no-huddle preview. Here's how it goes in the simplest of forms. Sacred Heart, they have a bye in Week 13. Their regular season finale is this week against Bryant. Sacred Heart's path to the automatic playoff bid, win Saturday, and they're dancing. Bryant has 2 games remaining. The Bulldogs have to win both. A win over Sacred Heart on Saturday, and then a win over Wagner in Week 13, and Bryant will be headed to the FCS playoffs. As for Wagner, they need a little help. They'll need to win against Duquesne on Saturday. They'll also need to beat Bryant in a head-to-head matchup in Week 13. They also need a Bryant victory over Sacred Heart on Saturday. So Wagner, with a Bryant victory on Saturday and then wins in its last 2 games, Wagner would acquire the automatic bid to the FCS playoffs. Of course, they were there back in 2012, winning a game, defeating Colgate, first team in NEC history to win an FCS playoff game. So anyway, there it is. Bryant, Sacred Heart, Wagner, all alive. The bottom line is it all starts with wins in Week 12. Let's take a look at those Week 12 matchups in the no-huddle preview. We'll start with the marquee matchup, the NEC football game of the week on ESPN3. Bryant and Sacred Heart, 8-1 against 8-2. Last year's champ against this year's challenger. Bryant and Sacred Heart have quite a bit in common. On Saturday on ESPN3, you'll see 2 of the nation's top defenses. These teams also feature 2-headed monsters in the offensive backfield. Of course, Bryant with Ricardo McCray and Paul Canaveri. Sacred Heart with Sean Bell and Kishota Spence. Oh, and Sacred Heart quarterback R.J. Noel, we know he can run it effectively as well. Both teams, Bryant and Sacred Heart, landed marquee non-conference wins, which should help them if indeed they go before the FCS selection committee. Drawing another parallel between the 2 teams, the quarterbacks, Bryant's Dalton Easton, Sacred Heart's R.J. Noel. They lead the Northeast Conference in touchdown passes. Noel, at 19, leads the way. Easton is second. He threw 17 scoring strikes thus far this season. Another number on Easton, 17 touchdowns to only 5 interceptions, better than a 3-to-1 ratio. That's the best in the Northeast Conference. So you have a lot of similarities between these 2, but only one can win in Week 12. As to who that'll be, I personally think it'll come down to special teams. Both the Bulldogs and Pioneers have played well on special teams this season, and that's one of the reasons why they're in this position to possibly capture a coveted berth to the FCS playoffs. Now, Bryant head coach Marty Fine knows that it's going to be challenging playing Sacred Heart on the road, but he's happy about the position his team has put itself in.
We're excited. We put ourselves in a position, and we've talked about this before, where we said we wanted to play games that had meaning in November. And what happens is that when you win one of those, the next one has more meaning. And everybody's walking around saying, oh, boy, you got Sacred Heart. Yeah, we do. But if we win that one, then the Wagner game becomes the biggest game ever. And if you win that one, then you're in the national playoffs, and that's the biggest game ever. And so as long as you keep winning, the games get bigger and bigger and bigger and more exciting and more intense. And we're playing the best competition of the year at the end.
4 games on the Week 12 docket. We look at game number 2 now. This one will be Duquesne at Wagner. The last time Duquesne was on Staten Island, Wagner was busy clinching the Northeast Conference title with a victory back in 2012. This time, the Seahawks are looking for a victory just to keep their Northeast Conference title hopes alive. They'll look to stop the run and likely dare Duquesne to beat them in the passing game. The Dukes were down to their third-string quarterback last week when backup Ryan Egoff suffered an in-game injury. Duquesne had been arguably the number 1 passing attack in the FCS for the season's first half. Dylan Beekle was averaging more than 310 pass yards per game, and Chris King was leading the entire nation in receiving over the season's first 6 games. Unfortunately for Duquesne and Beekle, their star quarterback went down in the Sacred Heart game, and he has yet to return to the lineup. Irregardless of who's throwing him the football, Duquesne wide receiver Chris King is a home run threat on every snap. He has 14 receiving touchdowns this year. That's second in the FCS and 2 shy of the NEC single-season record, which was set by Duquesne's Connor Dixon back in 2011. For a game within the game to focus on, make sure you keep your eye on Jarrett Judone against Chris King. Judone, of course, Wagner's star cornerback. He took a pick-six, 99 yards in last week's win over Robert Morris. It's likely he'll be seeing a lot of King throughout the afternoon. One of the top corners in the league against one of the top receivers in the league. Actually, 2 of the best in FCS. We'll see who wins that battle, and more importantly, the game, Saturday, Week 12, Duquesne at Wagner, live on NEC Front Row. We're halfway down the docket for Week 12. We'll take a look at our third and final conference matchup on the slate. That's St. Francis against Robert Morris. It's a Keystone State clash out in Moon Township. The Colonials will close out their home schedule by hosting the Red Flash. Visiting SFU comes off a bye week, while Robert Morris is looking to rebound from its 20-0 loss to Wagner. Robert Morris, which lost 2 quarterbacks in last week's game due to knee injuries, will likely rely on its young but talented defense in this one. NEC Rookie of the Week linebacker Gerald Ferguson and company will have to contain St. Francis U's Kahari Dixon. Dixon still leads the FCS in rush yards despite the bye last week, 1,461 yards. That's 35 better than South Dakota State's Zach Zenner. Another matchup to focus on in the Keystone State clash, RMU's defensive front, led by veteran Forrest Mason, against St. Francis's veteran offensive line, led by Colin Gadula. As is usually the case in this conference, the winner in the trenches will be the winner of the game. You can watch it all live on NEC Front Row. Matchup number 4 of 4 on the Week 12 docket. This one is a non-league showdown. Central Connecticut will look to build on a fairly impressive non-conference resume. The Blue Devils step out of league play to face MEAC member Howard in this year's edition of the NAACP Harmony Classic. A win would stop Central Connecticut's 5-game slide and even up the Blue Devils' non-league record at 3-3. Just to refresh your memory, those 2 Central non-conference victories, they came against members of the Colonial Athletic Association. Central opened the season by winning on the road, knocking off Towson, the 2013 FCS national runner-up, and later on in the non-conference season, they knocked off Rhode Island 38-14. As for Saturday's Harmony Classic, This is actually Central Connecticut's second ever appearance in the game. If you recall, back in 2008, the Blue Devils actually hosted the inaugural edition of the NAACP Harmony Classic, and they drew more than 8,000 fans to Willowbrook Park in New Britain. That day ended with a 35-23 win over North Carolina Central. This year, however, now that Arute Field has been renovated and the seating capacity has been expanded, the Harmony Classic will unfold on the campus of CCSU, Howard, and the Blue Devils live from Arute Field, and of course, you can watch the action all on Front Row. While watching on Front Row, though, we encourage you to take a look at some of that young talent that Central Connecticut has. Brendan Litton went for 220 yards from scrimmage in the absence of All-American running back Rob Holloman last week for Central. And on defense, there's Javon Elmore, the sophomore cornerback. Well, we've seen him do a little bit of everything this season. He's played well against the run. We've seen him sniff out screen passes and provide tremendous coverage downfield. We'll see if Linton, Elmore, and Central's young talent can play a harmonious tune on Saturday. Well, that may have been our longest no-huddle preview of the season. I'm definitely winded, but it's nothing a Twitter timeout can't fix. I'm calling it Twitter timeout. This week's featured tweet comes all the way from Alabama. It's a member of the Ackerson family telling us how much they love Sacred Heart down south. We're assuming that this tweeter is related to Sacred Heart freshman defensive lineman Dylan Ackerson. And guess what? Dylan isn't the only pioneer from down in Bama. Senior cornerback Preston Sanford, the guy who returned that blocked field goal 96 yards for a touchdown against Wagner, he's from Alabama too. They both went to Hoover High School. So to the NEC fans down in Alabama, we hope you enjoy this week's game on ESPN3. Now please join me as we take a look at some X's and O's. It's that time of the show where we feature one player on the defensive side of the ball and another on the offensive side. Well, we're going to start its quasi-offense, special teams. Hey, it's a kicker. We have to give them some love once in a while, and we're going to do that right here with Sacred Heart senior Chris Rogers. Rogers is an NEC record holder. We'll expand on that point in just a minute, but first, a quick scouting report on the young man. The 5'9" kicker does not have a big leg, but he is the epitome of accuracy. He has been the Pioneers' money man in recent years. This season, he's converting at an 80% rate. He's 12 of 14 from 39 yards and in. Of course, one of those 12 makes was the game-winning field goal in the fourth quarter at Delaware. Rogers doesn't wilt in the spotlight either. He hit a clutch kick to tie our NEC Game of the Week against St. Francis earlier this season. Oh, and in last year's playoff game at Fordham, he was a clean 2 for 2 on three-point tries. And as for that NEC record, Rogers has 45 career field goals. That is the best in Northeast Conference history. He recently surpassed a pair of former Wagner Seahawks, David Lopez and Peter Cech. That's great company to be in, folks. Of course, David Lopez made a number of clutch kicks during his career, and then there's the remarkable Peter Cech. A quick NEC flashback right here. Peter Cech, the guy from down the Jersey Shore in Keyport, a 6'5" kicker / punter. He was a first-team All-NEC kicker for Wagner and a first-team All-NEC punter. Numerous connections from 50 yards and beyond. Of course, the highlight was that NEC record 56-yarder he hit on a typically windy day at Wagner against St. Francis back in the 2007 season. So there you have it, an NEC flashback / shout out to Peter Cech, the former Wagner kicker who spent time in NFL training camps with the Pittsburgh Steelers and Baltimore Ravens. So we've gotten a little sidetracked here in our X's and O's segment. We told you about Chris Rogers, the Sacred Heart kicker, and then a little history lesson as far as Wagner's Peter Cech goes. Now, let's take a look at an active player on the defensive side of the ball. His name is Sam Sammons. He's a Bryant senior linebacker, a 220-pound native Texan. He started every game for 3 seasons now. This year, Sammons has 7 tackles for a loss, including 4 sacks. He's also made an interception. Now, those watching, you may be thinking to yourself, doesn't Bryant have a punter named Sam Sammons? Yeah, they're the same guy, punter / linebacker, and he does both pretty well. How did that all happen, though? Head coach Marty Fine gives us some insight.
Sam's been a 3-year starter at linebacker that when our punter got hurt, we put him back there because he's a good athlete. So, but he did rumble and bumble and stumble and look pretty fleet of foot running down in there for a touchdown, didn't he?
It was funny. We talked to Sam for our Bulldog Extra for the halftime of Saturday's game and asked him about his punting, and he said, well, in high school, I was a linebacker, and the punter got hurt, so I punted. I got to college, I was a linebacker, the punter got hurt, and I punted. Well, it follows him.
He's an interesting young fellow because, I recruited Sam. We recruited Sam, but I was down in that school, and no one ever said he was their punter. So we watched all the defensive film. He's a terrific player and a wonderful young man and a terrific student. He's in his 5th year here getting his master's. And was on the dean's list as an undergraduate, and so we're thrilled with everything Sam's done. A couple years ago, Dominic Kozlowski gets hurt when he's our punter, and Sam walks over on a Tuesday and says, Coach, I'm going to do that. I said, you're not a punter. He said, no, I am. I said, what are you talking about? He said, I punted in high school, and the punter got hurt. I said, can you do it? He said, oh, yeah. They put him over there and he punts the ball. And this is how sophisticated I am as a coach, because I'm really a detailed guy. I said, okay. He said, what do you want me to do? I said, catch it and kick it. He said, I got it, Coach. I'm all set now. Just walk away. And for 2 years now, he catches it and kicks it, so he's doing terrific.
It works out great.
So that'll do it, folks. If you can't get excited for Week 12, I don't know how to get you fired up. An NEC title is up for grabs, an automatic bid to the FCS playoffs, 4 games. You can watch our NEC Game of the Week on ESPN3. That kicks off at 12 noon on November 15th. The 3 other matchups, all live on NEC Front Row. Thanks for watching. For this edition of The Whole 9 Yards, I'm Ralph Ventre. We'll do it again next week. Enjoy the games.